You've heard the name Nostradamus, right? For almost 500 years, it's been all about these cryptic visions of the future. But have you ever stopped to wonder how they actually work? Well, today, we're not going to try to predict the future. We're going to do something I think a lot more interesting. We're going to take a single four-line prediction and deconstruct it to really understand the anatomy of a prophecy, to find that hidden formula that makes it feel so timeless. Okay, so what we're looking at is this short four-line text, they call it a quatrain, written way back in the 16th century. Now, our goal here isn't to prove it's true or false. Instead, we're going to treat it like a puzzle. We're going to see how its very structure is the key to why it's echoed through history for so long. So here it is, Century I, Quatrain 5. The language feels kind of old, doesn't it? A little mysterious. And it paints a pretty grim picture. War, people being forced from their homes, trouble, struggle. And then it ends with two very specific places, Carcassonne and Narbonne, which are actual cities in the south of France. Right away, it feels huge and personal at the same time. Now, that 16th century language can be a bit of a barrier, a little tough to wrap your head around. So our first step is a really simple one. Let's just put this into modern English and see what it's actually saying. Okay, so on the left, you've got the original, and on the right, a much clearer version. People will be forced out by a long war. The countryside will be thrown into chaos. But pay close attention to that last line. Hearts tried becomes severe hardships. It's interesting, right? Even just the simple act of translating is an interpretation. It takes it from something poetic to something very, very direct. So once you strip away all that mystery, the core message is, well, it's undeniable. This is a powerful and, a very bleak description of the universal experience of war. It's about how conflict uproots people, destroys the land, and just causes suffering for everyone, no matter if you live in a city or out in the country. All right, now that we know what it says, we get to the really fun part, how it says it. We're going to break this thing down, line by line, to see this brilliant structure that's just been hiding in plain sight. This is the engine that makes the whole prophecy run. So it turns out we can identify four distinct parts here, one in each line of the text. There's a cause for what's happening, an effect it has on people, the scope of the whole disaster, and then finally something I'm calling the anchor, the thing that grounds the entire prediction in reality. And here's exactly how that breaks down. Line 1, that's your cause, a long war. Line 2, that's the effect, displacement. Line 3 gives you the scope. This is affecting everyone. And then, line 4, bam, that's the anchor. Two real, specific places. It's an incredibly efficient and really powerful formula when you see it laid out like this. So, if we just step back for a second and look at this formula, we've got to ask the question, what is it about this specific mix, this vague cause, effect, and scope, but then a super specific anchor that works so darn well? Well, here's the secret. It's this really clever blend of the vague and the specific. The first three lines are totally universal. A long war, chaos, struggle. Sadly, those could describe just about any time in history. But then, that final line drops two very specific, very real places onto the map. The vagueness makes it apply to anything, but the specificity makes it feel credible, makes it feel real. Let's actually give this a name, prophetic ambiguity. It's a seriously powerful literary technique. You create a text that can be mapped onto almost any future event because the core ideas are so universal. But you give it the texture of truth with just a few concrete details that anchor it in reality. So all of this brings us to our final and maybe biggest question. We've dissected the text, we've named the technique, but that still leaves us wondering, why, after nearly 500 years, does a little four-line verse like this still feel so potent? Why does it still resonate? And the answer, I think, is that its true power isn't supernatural at all. It's poetic. This little quatrain has survived all this time not because it successfully predicted one single event, but because it so perfectly and so concisely describes the timeless, tragic, and universal experience of war itself. And because of that prophetic ambiguity we were just talking about, the text acts like a blank canvas. Any generation experiencing its own conflicts, its own fears, can look at these words and see their own reality reflected right back at them. The prophecy doesn't have to find us. We find ourselves inside the prophecy. Our own minds do all the heavy lifting of making it feel relevant right here and right now. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Maybe we've been thinking about prophecy all wrong. Is a true prophecy really something that foretells a single moment in time? Or, or is it something more profound? A piece of writing that's so insightful about the human condition that it actually ends up describing our story forever?